I want to welcome you to the Pro Mindset Podcast. The Pro Mindset Podcast is all about diving into the headspace that results in championship performance. High-performing athletes, winners, have this mental flow and have a positive headspace for their performances and success. Join me, Craig Domann, sports attorney and NFL agent, on this podcast. I will interview pro athletes, college athletes, football coaches, and sports personalities. Together, we can discover how you can get in the flow and have your own pro mindset. Today on our show is Nathan O'Neill, and Nathan is a football coach and trainer that has coached in the pros, coached in college, currently works for a training facility down in South Florida. He trains guys during their, like guys like Von Miller during the off season. He trains with the best of the best during the off season to help those guys polish their skills and getting ready for their next NFL season. He works with a lot of college players and helping them do better during their college career. He has relationships with numerous Power 5 elite college football coaches that'll bring him in to do consulting with their defensive staff. He also went to training camp this year and has gone to NFL camps to do the same thing to help their defensive coaches, especially as it pertains to the pass rush. And he knows what it takes to make it to the NFL. He knows what the superstars do and think, and he's going to describe for us today what it takes to be a dude. Nathan, I want to thank you for being on the show today.
Outstanding, man. Appreciate you for having me.
Okay, Nathan, so when you evaluate young men that are football players and you're looking for the dude, what kind of characteristics does that guy have? And, you know, the title of my podcast is Pro Mindset. How do you describe a pro mindset?
First off, want to. They got to have a great want to get to the quarterback. Like, it's literally got to be something that mentally they're obsessed with. How do I get there? What's the movement? What's the rotation? What's the, what's the technique? What best fits my body? They got to have a great want to not only go along with, great length and great size and quickness and explosion. They got to have this want to in them mentally that makes them almost obsessed with it. All the great pass rushers are obsessed with getting to the quarterback. All of them are. I've had
so we just came.
Go ahead. I'm
just going to jump in there, Nathan. We came up with a new acronym called OWT. Obsessive Want-To.
I like it. I like the hell out of it. Obsessive Want-To. I'm stealing it. I'm taking it away from you.
Okay, you run with it. Okay, so let's talk about. You've worked with some of the best of the best.
Yes, sir. And
when you think of like Von Miller and some of the guys you've worked with, and what separates them from everybody else?
In all honesty, I think it goes down to preparation. And I had the insane privilege of going out and teaching at Von Miller's Pass Rush Summit this year in Las Vegas. And the thing that I came away with from that opportunity that I really think has kind of helped me take my business and my growth as in my profession to another level is seeing guys like Von Miller, Aaron Donald, the dude from Jacksonville, Yunuke Nwange, Cam Jordan, seeing these guys who are so good at what they do, right?
Yep.
That they were so focused on learning the itty-bitty fine details of pass rush, right? Like, so Von, he talked about himself. So if my hand is 1 inch too far to the right when it should be to the left, what that can mean to that rush rep, and it truly is a game of inches. And the guys who are phenomenal at the game, who are the greats, they develop those games of inches, and they focus on those games of inches. And so when you ask about, like, what is it that separates a guy like him, it is the inches.
It's the details. It's the small things.
Yes,
and so what I have found is that all the really good players do most of the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the elite guys, the superstars, the Pro Bowlers, the guys that are going to go to the Hall of Fame, they have a tendency to see things more myopically, and they can just see more detail, and they do more detail, and they practice more detail than everyone else.
Correct.
Okay.
100%. And it's not that I don't necessarily think that they're born that way, Craig. I think they develop that. You know what I'm saying? Like, they truly develop that habit of seeing things differently and then developing those things.
Well, I think by nature, guys are not detail-oriented. And if you look at, any couple, the lady's always more detailed than the man, almost 95% of the time.
In my marriage, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, same thing in my marriage as well. And so I think what happens is that is definitely a learned skill. As an athlete and as a competitor and as a performer, you learn that if you want to be great, you have to be more specific in your practice routine and your repetitions and your habits so that you can get better results. When you get better results, you get the opportunity to get reinforcement in what you just did.
Absolutely.
Which motivates you to be even more detailed.
Absolutely. And being so detailed, at the end of the day, being so detailed can make up for maybe a shortcoming in athleticism.
Absolutely.
I witnessed
the combine. Go ahead.
Well, I witnessed it last year. So I have a defensive end that now plays in the NFL. That he played at the University of Texas, and he seeked out me, and we developed this relationship, and we started working predominantly just strictly through film. And I came out there to Austin a few times every year, 2 years, each year, and we got some work in. But predominantly, it was just through film. His name was Charles O'Menahue, and Charles was, last year, the 2019 season, was the Big 12 Defensive Lineman of the Year, 5th round draft pick by the Houston Texans, and he's had for the most part, a great year this year. As a rook, accomplishing some good things. But what he developed last year was this fine detail, this ability to really fine-tune the small details in his pass rush and watching an offensive lineman and trying to figure out how to attack that offensive lineman. He did a great job of developing those fine details through so many film studies. We were on the phone 3 times a week doing FaceTime going through film.
Gotcha. So I think the other thing that you just described is one of the attributes you have to be great is you have to have a strong yearning to learn.
Absolutely.
Because it leads you to understanding that details matter. But if you don't have a real strong obsession to learn more and to be great, you'll never get to the details.
Absolutely.
So that might be number one.
It starts with just that want to. That want to be great. The want to.
Absolutely.
What did you call it? OWT?
OWT, Obsessive Want-To.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Talk a little bit about the training facility you work at, the people that are there, the types of players you guys train, and getting college players ready for the draft and get ready for the combine.
So XPE Sports is where I work out of in Boca Raton, Florida. We have 2 locations. We have one in Boca, which is kind of the head location. That's where the owner of the facility is, Tony Villani. And then we have another location down in Fort Lauderdale. Tony Villani is regarded as one of the very best speed coaches in this business. At the end of the day, in all reality, he's probably, for football, NFL Combine, if not the top, he's top 3 guaranteed. The fastest, so the 5 fastest 40s in NFL Combine history come from that man right there. Not to mention, it says a lot, right? Not to mention, he's just an incredible man. Very humble, works hard, obsessed with his own want-to. Obsessed with being great. He's the inventor of the shred mill. It's a treadmill that truly teaches guys how to generate power from the ground up, explosion from the ground up. We got to drive into the ground with a certain amount of force, but we got to drive out of the ground with that same amount of force. So he's mastered his art, brother, and I'm as long as I'm in the private sector, that's a man I'll rock with until I'm no longer there.
Awesome. Who are some of the guys you guys had drafted last year?
Malcolm Brown, Hollywood Brown, from Oklahoma, with the Baltimore Ravens. DeAndre Baker, University of Georgia, went to the New York Giants, first round. Jeffrey Simmons, Mississippi State, went to the Tennessee Titans, first round, even though he had a torn ACL. And I can tell you right now, Jeffrey Simmons is one of the freakiest athletes I've ever worked with. He it doesn't make sense what that human being can do at the size that he is. 6'5", 310 pounds, and runs a sub 4.8 40, 10-yard split in 1.55. It just doesn't make sense to be able to move like that.
That doesn't make sense. That's not even fair.
No. And now I would tell you this about Jeffrey Simmons. Jeffrey was the very first person that arrived every single day during NFL Combine training. And after that, like he was here through the pro day. It was the last one to leave every single day. And then he was the first person to say hello to anybody and everybody that came around him. The young man is outstanding.
Just a great dude.
Yeah, I'm telling you right now, man, that kid right there, if he can stay healthy, the sky's the limit. You're looking at a Canton guy if he can stay healthy. And, he started the season pretty fast so far. Daggone first game out, had a sack and a couple TFL.
Well, if you're that kind of athlete in the NFL and you've got the obsessive want-to we talked about, you're going to get production.
Absolutely.
From your experience from working with college guys on their way to the pros, what's the biggest thing that, it's almost like sometimes you tell people what's going to happen and they just kind of nod their head and go, yeah, I gotcha. And then they get there and they're surprised because they didn't really listen. Okay. And then you ask them, hey, why are you struggling? What's going on? And they go, man, I didn't know it was going to be like this. And you're like, man, I told you that.
Right.
What's the biggest thing that college guys kind of tune out because they think they know, but they don't know, and it kind of catches them by surprise once they get to the NFL, whether it's the OTAs, training camps, so on and so forth?
Well, I think a big problem. So when guys are in college, their lives are just insanely structured. Everything about their day, what time they get up because they got workouts, or they got study hall, or they got meetings, to what time they go to bed because of the same reasons, right? When the draft process is growing for them, they've got a whole lot of people in their life that is telling them how perfect they are, how great they are, how amazing they are. And a lot of the reason those people are saying those things is for their own daggone benefit. They know this person's going to land in some serious money or have a chance to, and they want to make sure they're in that person's good grace. Or, it's an agent who is constantly blowing them up and telling them how great they are because they don't necessarily operate the right way, which is a way of integrity and a way of having an overall complete care about this young man's future, because at the end of the day, ball doesn't last forever. It's not guaranteed. So these young men are going to have children, These young men are going to have wives. They've got parents. They've got, people that are of great value in their life. And then you got people coming in, constantly lifting them up, telling them you're perfect, you're great. Oh my gosh, you're amazing. So these kids, I think they truly do lose focus at the end of the day. It still has to be about ball. You still got to play the game. And so I think a lot of these kids, and I won't say any names, man, but, we had a couple of them with us last year that, man, I knew them when they were in college because I spent a lot of time around their university when it came down to it.
Nathan, let me add on to that, and that is that the thing that people forget is the main thing is you got to keep the main thing the main thing.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Love that. Yes, sir.
You can't say it too much because what happens is everybody wants to love on the player, blow smoke up their skirt. And when you talk, as an agent, when you talk to teams, you usually get a range. Let's say it's second to fifth, okay? And
sure.
It might depend on how he runs, might depend on how a coach might like him. It's still, early in the evaluation process. Let's say it's in January, February. And so what does the agent do? Tells the young man he's going to be a second. Now, and if he says second to fifth, the player's only going to hear the second anyway.
Right.
And so now when he goes in the fourth, which was kind of middle of the road, he feels disappointed because he didn't go in the second. And the funny thing about the whole draft process is, I may be a little off on this, but there's somewhere around 120 guys every single year that at some point in the draft evaluation process leading up to the draft, 120 that are talked about as potentially being a first rounder at some point in time. And
wow.
There's only going to be 32. So that means about 90 guys that get drafted were thinking they had a chance to go in the first round because some draftnik at some point in time had him going 25th to whoever, and the teams never thought he was going to be never even thought of him to smell the first round, but because on the internet it shows up on one of the draft sites that he could go 25th, his whole family, his agent, his financial advisor, his posse of friends, man, my guy's a first rounder. And if he goes in the fourth, on Thursday night, late in the first round, there's like 100 guys waiting for the name to get called, and only about 5 or 6 get called. And then day 2 comes, and we got another 64 guys or so, and their name isn't called there either. So those guys get punched below the waist because they're expecting to get drafted on Thursday night, and they don't get drafted until Saturday morning. And so the hard part about this process is players have a tendency to only hear the good and not the bad. And people around them have a tendency to only tell them the good and sugarcoat the bad. And I understand why. I mean, if somebody's telling me I'm looking fat, I'm not going to want to hang out with them. You want to hang with people that are positive around you.
Absolutely.
So that's the dilemma. Is how do you authentically represent a young man so that he knows, hey, this could happen if everything goes right. This is most likely going to happen if you do good. And if you stub your toe, something off the field, or you run a crappy 40, man, you're going to be down here. But let's not go down there because you've got control of that.
Right.
And I think that's the better way to advise and represent a young man is to give him all 3 different zones that he could be in, not just the best zone.
That's the right way, Craig. That is, and ultimately these young men will respect that brutal honesty. At least the majority of them will. I've been around the game long enough to see what it looks like when a kid is just going to be a one contract and maybe done guy, maybe a guy that doesn't even make it through that whole contract, right? Then these guys that become those dudes that make it all the way through and get that second contract. We all know that's the goal, right? Because that's the deal that's going to set their lives up. I really believe that's why a lot of guys who are undrafted free agents make it and make it so long. I had a couple of them last year in last year's combine training. Jonathan Ledbetter from the University of Georgia did killed it in camp, killed it in preseason, killed it in OTAs, and the young man made the team, started the first game with the Dolphins this year as an undrafted rookie free agent, and then got hurt his ankle. But the other guy, Kyle Phillips from the University of Tennessee, is just playing wonderful right now. And I hope you hear the voice change there, man, because he is just killing it. And he was an undrafted free agent out of Tennessee because of injuries that happened earlier in his career. So many of those type of young men, that when they come in, they're clinging to every bit of knowledge that they can get, and they stay hungry. And then they get into every opportunity could be truly their last opportunity, so they do everything they can to make the most of it. A big deal with these people that are doing a disservice to these young men that are highly ranked and early drafted is by telling them everything but the truth, and give these guys honesty, keep them going, keep that drive going. And the guys who become great, I think they truly do. I think they're great athletes who keep that same hunger drive going their entire careers, and they stay healthy.
Well, you just described two ends of the spectrum. One is OWT, Obsessive Want-To, hunger, and the other side is entitlement. And what happens is when you lie to a player, his entitlement goes up. When a team drafts him higher, his entitlement goes up. When people lie to him, his entitlement goes up. His hunger goes down. His want-to goes down. And so there's a balance there. And so if a young man has the traits, has the production, doesn't have injury history, doesn't have off-the-field issues, and he's a top 100 young man, he's going to be top 100 draft pick, you got to make sure that you don't create entitlement in his mind so that he loses his hunger. Because just because you go get drafted in the first round doesn't mean you're entitled. It depends. You might be. You might not be. But if you can have obsessive want-to, you can have incredible hunger and still get drafted in the first round. And those guys end up in Canton, Ohio because they had something. They fit in the box. They had the traits the NFL teams were looking for. They had the skill set that matched up. And if they've got that hunger and want-to, the sky's the limit. And then you got guys that are not drafted because they don't fit in the box. They've got injury history. They're misunderstood. There's something that happened in their past that people are scared about. And they've got the hunger and the want-to and the drive and the motivation and the focus. And they go to camp, and now the teams don't really care. The coaches don't really care where a guy's drafted. They want a guy that knows the playbook, knows his job, is going to be consistent, reliable, dependable, and can make plays.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why a guy can be an undrafted player and be a day one, game one starter in the NFL. Not done very often, but it happens. Sometimes they have to catch a break with somebody that's maybe ahead of them on the depth chart, having an injury or something going on. And so entitlement is the career killer. It is the kryptonite for a successful career. You cannot have entitlement and a successful career. They don't go together. And when players are humble and they've got want-to and hunger, they're motivated, they're dialed in, they're locked in, they keep the main thing, and they get paid, then somehow it starts fading, and they start getting entitled. Well, that's how you accelerate the end of your career, because now the coach is trying to find somebody else. He doesn't want somebody that's entitled. He wants somebody that's focused on all those things you were to get to your place where you're getting paid.
Right.
So that's what I've seen is that when you kind of put those two together, you've got to make sure, even as a dad, when you're raising boys that are athletes, you can't. Let's say he's the biggest dude on the court or on the field. He's the fastest. He's got the best instinct, and you say, "Man, you got it. You got it, dude." Well, what are you doing to his hunger? What are you doing to his want-to?
Mm-hmm.
You're giving him more entitlement. And then the daddy can't understand why when his son gets to be a senior in high school, he doesn't want to play football anymore. He's sick of it.
Absolutely.
So
that's why I wouldn't let my kids. My kids still haven't played. My oldest is, I have an 11-year-old and I have an 8-year-old, and neither one of them's played yet. And I won't let them play until they get to high school. I want them to fall in love with it the way I did, but do it a little bit later. That's to save them, to keep them from getting burned out, to save their bodies. And if something great happens, then awesome. But if not, I hope they find out the same thing I found out about this game.
Yep. Well, let's talk about a mindset that's stuck. It's stuck in where they thought they would be, but they're not. It's stuck in their story. It's stuck in their past. It's stuck in other people's opinion. It's stuck in, a lot of pros, their mindset gets stuck into where they thought they were going to get drafted, but they didn't. Let's take Aaron Rodgers. He thought he was going to go to San Francisco as the number one pick, and they took Alex Smith out of Utah, and he falls to 22 with the Packers. And then he gets stuck behind a Hall of Famer. But he didn't allow that to hold him back. He showed that the other night. He shows it every day. He might be the MVP of the league. But a lot of players, they do get stuck because they went in the 6th round. The agent told them they were going to go in the 3rd, and it paralyzes their ability to perform once they show up on a team.
Right.
How do you feel like a player should get unstuck? What would be your recommendation if you're talking to a young man and he's disappointed, he's frustrated, he's heartbroken, he's broke. He already bought the car that he thought he was going to be able to afford with a second round draft choice money, but he goes in the 7th round. Now he can't even afford to make the car payments on the car he's driving around. How does a player get unstuck?
I think ultimately it's just like your normal everyday Joe. Life hits people hard, and things happen, and unexpected things happen. And you can either sit back and lose yourself in that and focus on the negative, or you can put your head down and put one foot in front of the other. And no matter what it takes, you go to work and you get yourself out of it, or you show that, they made a bad decision, but so what? I'll make my second contract better. I'll make everybody in the NFL see who I am. I'm going to be what it is that I expect myself to be, my standard of myself. And for everyday Joes, it's the same thing. Life hits us, man. And you just got to put your head down. You got to go to work, and you got to believe in yourself the same way. These guys, they got to keep believing in themselves. Because at the end of the day, you said the main thing has to stay the main thing. Just get to ball. Be who you are and get to ball. And watch what happens. People won't remember that you fell out of the 1st round and fell to the 2nd or the 3rd. People won't remember you fell out of the 2nd to the 5th. But what everybody will remember is how great you were. Just get back to ball.
Well, I echo those comments, and I would say that's when you got to make sure you know who you are and that you believe in yourself, even though other people may not.
Absolutely.
You've got to increase your passion about what you do. So if you're a football player, your passion just took a hit, because anybody can love the game when you're on top of the game. Anybody can love the game when you go 12-0 and you're heading to the college playoffs. Not everybody can love the game when you're 0-12. And then the next thing you've got to do is reinvent your discipline to a point where you're more disciplined in your behavior, your training, everything you've got to do to line up with whatever your goal is. So if you want to make it in the league, you want to make it in the league for 10 years, whatever it is, everything you do has got to line up with that. If it doesn't line up, it's not going to work.
Absolutely.
What do you think the secret sauce is for an NFL player to have longevity in the league? Because most players, by the time they get to the NFL, are burnout. Football's become a business. Now they're chasing the money, and they want to get paid for something that they don't think they've been paid for, but they have been because they got a free education. And some guys will play into their 30s, and Tom Brady and Adam Vinatieri play into their 40s. How does a guy play into his 30s when it's a business and it's not fun like it was in high school?
I think at the end of the day, as hard as that is to say, you have to be able to separate the two. The business side of the game is ugly. That's why you hire people to help you navigate that. You know what I mean? And, a player, for example, hires an agent. You hire a financial advisor. You bring these people in your life from a business standpoint, make it about business. And then ball isn't business. Ball is ball. At the end of the day, it's about going out and competing at a high level and winning championships. And because it's ball, it's that competitive nature. Bring people in your life that help you in the off season that can truly benefit your body and your mind and are going to be the right people in your life. Some people need blunt honesty. Some people need to be lifted up. Some people need hard love and positive love. But make sure they're people that really, truly know how the body works and, can take care of your body. If you can't separate the two, if you're sitting in the locker room and your main focus is your contract, then you're not going to be the locker room presence, the human being you need to be. If you're sitting in the position room and y'all are going through film and dude in front of you got 5 reps and you only got 2, and you're thinking, all right, how do I get that 5? Then you're thinking about ball, and you're going to be fine. I don't know if that makes sense.
I agree with that. I think generally what happens is once you go to the pros as a rookie, you're excited about playing in the NFL. It is about ball. And then as you navigate through your rookie deal, it becomes about money, and it becomes more about business. But at the beginning, guys, most of the time, they want to run out of the tunnel, start their first NFL game, be on SportsCenter, be on with Dion after the game, enjoy the fruits of playing in the NFL. And then I think what happens is the comparison game comes in. You can always find somebody that's making a lot more money than you that's doing less than you in every single locker room. And if you can't find somebody in your locker room, you can find somebody in multiple other locker rooms around the league. And once you play that game, you start feeling like you're being treated unfair, and you start thinking about the money. For guys like Brady and guys that have played a long time, they've learned how to every single year separate, as you mentioned, business from ball, and pipe into that rookie spirit again. And remember what it was like to be a rookie. And I know Tom Brady right now is 42, but he has to dig deep and have the spirit of a rookie, because logically it makes no sense when you've made almost $300 million on the field and God knows how much off the field, and your wife has made more than you have, to go put your body in harm's way and play football in the NFL at 42.
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%.
Okay. Nathan, one of the things that I see is that a lot of times players have a dysfunctional relationship with their coach. Whether I'm talking to a college player or I'm talking to one of my pros, sometimes they don't trust their coach. Sometimes they don't feel like the coach understands them. Sometimes they feel like the coach is not treating them fairly, giving them the equal opportunity, all those types of things. How do you recommend a player, whether he's pro, college, doesn't matter, it's the same, handle his relationship and his mindset about his relationship with his position coach?
I think one thing we always got to be doing, I'm actually really glad you brought that up, because I have this unique opportunity, Craig, where because my main focus has always been about if I develop, then the athletes I work with develop. So I've always reached out and tried to build relationships with just some amazing football coaches, some guys that coach in college and are coaching now, have transitioned and are coaching in the NFL, some guys that are still just coaching in college because that's what the love is, just a broad spectrum of different philosophies. And so having that opportunity to learn from these people and see their attitudes and what their focus is, as much as that they need to continue to evaluate themselves and not just think about everything, boom, inside this box, but kind of think about things, a little bit on the outside of the box. I think players, they have to constantly evaluate themselves as well. That coach did something I don't like, took a rep from me, did this to me, did this. All right, let me sit back and see, is there something in me that did maybe I slacked the day before? Maybe I wasn't successful here. Maybe my work ethic needs to grow here. From there, they already see some things that are coming about that maybe I didn't give great effort. Maybe I did, I was, I think if we're constantly evaluating ourselves and the person we are when we show up every day, I think we can start to see things in ourselves that we got to constantly be improving on. And if we're focused there, I think all relationships make strong.
So what I heard you say was, instead of pointing the finger at your coach, a player should look in the mirror and figure out what he's not doing or should be doing.
Absolutely.
Or shouldn't be doing.
Yes, sir.
To make the relationship better.
Yes, sir. 100%.
Okay, so let's say you have a young man who looks in the mirror and makes some modifications and is doing all the right things and still doesn't feel connected to his coach. What, if anything, could he do to improve his relationship with his coach?
Well, that might be the hardest question of the day, Mr. Craig.
I'm sorry. Well, I just feel like there's a disconnection all over the country at the college level and the pro level between the players, the locker room, and the coaches.
So what we're talking about is dealing with human beings, right? Because sometimes people just aren't for each other. Even in my world, I'm not meant to train every athlete that walks through the door to work with me, because personality-wise, pardon my language, Craig, but I can be a bit of an asshole. So I'm being tough because I have a belief, okay? And every one of the kids that does work with me, they would tell you that when you step off the field with me, I'm going to love you hard, because that's the only way I know how to be. That's what the good Lord said, so I'm going to love you hard. But when we're on the field, we're there to accomplish something. And I am obsessed with developing greatness. And when I say greatness, I don't mean everybody becoming a Hall of Famer. I mean they're great, And so I always say, look, it's either wrong or it's right. It's either right or it's wrong. There's no in between. So in my world, when it's wrong, I'm going to punish you for it being wrong, because I'm going to develop greatness. And I think some players, they don't realize that that's all a coach wants. A coach that's worth a dang, all he wants is to develop greatness. And that's your greatness. Doesn't mean first-round draft pick greatness. It doesn't mean Hall of Fame greatness. It means your greatness.
Let's talk more about your greatness. What does that look like? You've got a young man that maybe doesn't have as much natural, God-given athletic ability than the next guy. What does that look like for him?
Greatness, man, is very simple, and it really is. It's playing with great effort and great focus on every single snap. Because if you play with great effort, you're going to play with great technique. You're going to play till the whistle. If you play with great focus, you're going to do your job the way it's supposed to be done, and you're going to play with great technique. It's simple. It really is.
That is real simple. I agree with that. And I think there's a lot of things that go into that, and that is, being locked in, being prepared before the game, studying game film, knowing your own playbook, knowing the personnel on the other. If you're a defensive player, knowing the personnel, knowing the tendencies on different formations, different motions.
Knowing the situation, playing situational football. And if you ask me, I think that's what Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots do better than anybody. And I believe they develop great effort and great focus all the way across the board. And if you don't play with those, then you're not made for them. I just think they do a great job of that.
And they find a place for everybody.
Yes, sir.
They find a role. You may not be a superstar running back, but you're really good about picking up blitzes and catching the ball in the backfield. So you're in nickel situations on third down, because you're either going out and you can catch the ball, or you're staying in and you can protect the quarterback.
No, you're right, man. It's something that I think as human beings we get a little too complicated with when it comes to the game. At the end of the day, I think we neglect the real simple side of the game. To me, sometimes simplicity is best,
Gotcha, man. Nathan, I want to thank you for taking the time today out of your busy schedule to be on Pro Mindset Podcast.
Absolutely.
You've given us a lot of insight on lots of different things. It's been a great conversation. I want to thank you and wish you nothing but the best.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Pro Mindset. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. 5 stars, of course. You can follow us on our website, promindsetpodcast.com, or on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Pro Mindset Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you the next time.